What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Alex Decider podcast. Today, I got a special episode for you. We'll be talking about the power of asking the right questions when we are solving problems. We'll also be talking about undermining your confidence and belittling yourself and tearing yourself down. We'll be talking about the damage that you do to yourself when you talk yourself down. Another thing we'll be going over is what happens when you have a slow start to your engineering career. What happens if the job that you get after graduation is not really what you expected? What should you do? How should you handle the situation? And last but not least, we'll also be talking about your interest and getting to know yourself and how important this can be, or it actually is, for your journey ahead and going forward. So with all that being said, make sure that you drop a like to this video, subscribe to the channel, and join so you can join me for future drops and uploads for more podcasts and useful videos just like this one. Okay, so with all that being said, the first thing I want to mention here is the personal development tip of the day, and that is asking good questions and how important and powerful that is. It's actually more powerful than you think, and this is something that I learned recently. Here, I'm giving you a lesson and some wisdom from a book that I read a couple of days ago. I started rereading this book a couple of days ago, and this is a book that I actually read probably 2-3 years ago. But it's good to reread some good books that you think you can get more out of. The way I like to think about it is whenever you watch a movie. For example, I watched Fast and the Furious, the movie, for many times, right? I think I watched each movie at least 2 to 3 times. And I really enjoy these movies. That's one of my favorite series, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, the funny thing is that every time I watch a Fast and the Furious movie, I find something different that I did not realize before. I find new details that help me make more sense of the movie and the whole plot as it is. So it's the same thing that happens with books. It's something that I've come to realize. There are some books that I've been listening to and that I've been rereading for the second or third time. And trust me, when you do that, you really start grasping and understanding some concepts more and more. And that is the case for what I'm sharing here with you in this video. And that is asking the right questions and how powerful they can be. A lot of the times, we are trying to solve a problem. We are trying to identify a certain problem. We try to state it properly. But then if we don't do that, if we don't ask the right questions, we may misidentify a certain problem, right? For example, asking the right questions when it comes to you learning a subject or learning a craft. For example, let's say that we are in college, and let's say that I'm currently taking calculus, which is something that I did in my first semester. And let's assume that I'm having difficulties learning calculus. Let's assume that for some reason, I just can't get a grasp of the concepts. And I'm sure some of you guys, if you have an engineering background, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Calculus is a very difficult class. So when I went through it, I had a lot of challenges learning the material. And there's 2 ways I could have approached the situation. I could have asked the question of, hey, why can I not learn calculus? Why is it so difficult for me? Why can't my brain grasp those concepts? That's one question that I can ask myself. And little did you know, if you analyze this question a little deeper, you start realizing and thinking that that actually makes you powerless, because you're just leaving the question out there and you're not really taking ownership and control of what you can do about the fact that you can not understand calculus thus far. So if we compare the question of why cannot learn calculus, and as opposed to you asking that question, you ask yourself, hey, what are some resources that I can use so that I can actually learn or understand calculus? How can I find other ways to understand calculus? How can I make it happen? Another example could be, hey, why can't I afford a car? That's very, very relatable, right? A lot of the times we need a new car, or we want to buy a new car. And one question that we can ask ourselves is, hey, why cannot I afford a Lamborghini? Just for the sake of everyone knows what a Lambo is. Why cannot I afford a Lamborghini if you really want it deep down? That's one question that you can ask yourself, or you can ask yourself, hey, how can I make that happen? How can I afford that Lambo? Another question or something that I want to ask you, and another example that I want to share with you here, is when it comes to finding our passions. A lot of the times it's very difficult to know what we're interested in. A lot of the times we don't know what we're into because we haven't exposed ourselves enough or to enough situations or experiences that we don't know what we like, right? That's one of the problems when you have too many choices. You don't know which one to pick and you have this analysis paralysis. So one question that you can ask yourself is, hey, what is my passion? Or you can ask yourself, hey, what are the things that interest me? Where does my attention go? Why do I feel the most engaged in whenever I'm reviewing a certain concept? What are my interests? Where does my attention go? So if you ask yourself those questions, they are more specific and they're going to lead you down a path that is deeper than you just asking a general question, hey, what is my purpose? Or what is my passion? So of course, these are just very, very high level examples, but you get the idea, because this type of philosophy I generally think can help you when you're in school, when you graduate and you're a professional engineer. Also, not only that, but in your personal relationships, perhaps you are trying to fix or solve a problem that you have with your significant other or between your family members. So always make sure that you ask the right questions. And that takes practice. Asking the same thing in different manners, trying to identify the problem properly, because once you do that, then that's half the battle. So don't forget this. It's a very, very valuable question. If you're going to take anything away from this part of the podcast, make sure you remember that the quality of the answers that you're looking for or that you get, it's going to depend on the quality of the questions. Carry this with you forever. And trust me, you're going to be a much more whole individual. And people are going to look at you. I remember this guy who I used to work with a couple of years ago. And he was very smart. He had a lot of experience under his belt. And whenever we would be in a meeting, we used to have every Monday, we would have a meeting with our engineering team. And everybody would sit down in a room and we will go over the duties and the tasks that we had, the goals and all the challenges what we were running into. And this guy, his name was Mike. I won't say his last name, obviously. But this guy, he would sit in a chair. He would look at everyone. He would start going over the room. And whenever we would get stuck in a certain discussion, whenever we would not be able to identify a problem, we would try to see, okay, how can we, let's say, for instance, as an example, why are people not turning in the reports for this test? Right? That's a very general question. Hey, why are they not meeting the deadline? They're delaying the project. So most people would ask, hey, why are they not turning in the project? Another type of question could be, and this is the skill that this guy had, was why or how can we complete the report by this deadline? What is something that we are missing when it comes to completing the report that we can get done so that we can complete it by this deadline? So that's a very specific question, and it really shifts the focus from why are they not completing the report to how can we make it happen? So these are the type of questions that I think can really set you apart. Again, not only when you're an engineering student, when you're an engineering professional, but also in your personal life and in your life journey. So remember that the power of the questions or the quality of your answers depend on the quality of the questions that you ask. Keep that in mind. Okay, so the next thing that I want to mention here when it comes to personal development, bear with me here for a second, is something that I shared on Instagram a couple of days ago. And that is actually no, today I shared it, but by the time I release this podcast, it will be a couple of days. And that is, do not tear yourself down or belittle yourself. Acknowledge your accomplishments and keep your chin high. Keep going. And one of the things that I found a psychological study that says that the more you focus on tearing yourself down and belittling yourself, the more likely you will be to experience setbacks and failures. On the other hand, if you acknowledge your accomplishments and successes, the more confident you will be and the more likely you will be to succeed again. It's almost like the law of attraction, right? If you always think about failures, if you always think about negativity, then more likely you are going to be attracting more failures and more negativity. Or unconsciously, you are going to lead yourself down a path of failure and setbacks and more obstacles. But if you have a positive mindset, if you actually think of yourself, okay, I know that I have some failures. I know that I have some setbacks in the past, but I decide and I control my thoughts. And so you start focusing on what you can learn and the lessons of the failures that you run into. And then you shift your mindset towards more positive outcomes and a more positive journey ahead, as opposed to you just being weighed down by the obstacles that held you back in the past. So learn from your failures, but just keep moving and don't make them the focus or let them define you. Always remember to not let your failures and your setbacks define you. That's the worst thing that you can do, because that's just going to keep you trapped in the past, and it's not going to allow you. You're not allowing yourself to move on and evolve from the mistakes that you made. So it's human to pay attention to the negative things that happen in our lives. But we have to be aware that we control what we pay attention to, what we focus on. And when we know that, when we are aware of that, then we can make the conscious decision to keep moving forward and be optimistic. And of course, also take action to make the positive things in your life come alive. So that's the other thing that I wanted to mention here, and I think it's very, very important, because the words that you utter to yourself matter. And the more you denigrate yourself, the more you talk yourself down, the more damage you're doing to yourself unconsciously. And that is going to reflect on your thoughts. It's going to reflect on your behavior and your actions and the world that you see, and the optimism or pessimism, for that matter, that you hope for the future, or that you create also for your future. Okay, so with that being said, the next thing I want to talk about here, and let's go over to the Q&A, the engineering Q&A. And here I have a question, and it says, my job is not giving me engineering work. What do I do? I recently graduated as a mechanical engineer, and after having some trouble getting hired, I accepted the first job that would have me, hoping to get experience and some money. I live in a comparatively small community, so there are not a lot of jobs available. The job does not pay much, so I am basically working for experience, but that's the problem. At the start, I mostly wound up doing a little bit of everything, which often meant data entry or sorting inventory. I had assumed that I would be given real engineering work as time went on, but that hasn't happened. Basically, I do whatever needs to be done. The reason I decided to write this, however, was because last month I was given a list of cleaning tasks to do around the building. This feels like a waste of my education, and like it is not helping me move forward. Does anyone else have to deal with this? I feel like I studied for 4 years to be office mate. Okay, I feel your pain, my friend. Definitely, it's something to be very wary of, because there is a fine line, the way I see it. There is a fine line between you being patient and you getting started and paying your dues, quote unquote. If you talk to more experienced engineers, you're gonna hear the young engineers pay their dues when they start, or when we start our career. We do the things that other older engineers don't want to do, or the things that some engineers think are too good to be doing. And that's what the new engineers in the first week or first couple of weeks, or maybe, who knows, even perhaps the first couple of months start doing. And this reminds me, funny story. This reminds me of in 2015, I was working with a guy who went to school in North Carolina. We were working together, and he said that he got a job up in the Northeast area. So he moved, and after all the hiring process and all the onboarding process, it was his first day in the office. of course, he introduced himself, said hi to everyone, and it was time for him to go sit down in his cubicle. He said that his cubicle, it was literally, imagine this wall, and he had a chair here facing the cubicle, or facing the wall, excuse me. And he was saying that he sat down, he put his things on his computer wasn't working because he did not have access to anything yet. So he grabbed his notebook, put it on the desk, stared at a black screen with nothing, no computer, and there's a wall, a brick wall behind it. So he's just sitting there like this, thinking about life. He was sitting there looking at the wall, at a black screen with nothing to do, just waiting for his paperwork to be processed. He was basically almost on the same boat as you. He was started questioning life and thinking, I went to school for 5 years to wind up here, staying on a brick wall with a screen that doesn't work. Of course, that was just the beginning. That was the onboarding process. But then over time, he started getting more tasks, more responsibilities, more projects, and that actually led him to move up. And right now, he actually is he has a leadership position as a technical authority in a certain organization when I used to work. I moved on from with that organization where I was working with him, but I know that he's doing well nowadays. So it's actually a good outcome. And little did he know, the future was bright for him, and it still is bright. But my point is that he had a rocky start where he found himself not doing anything and questioning his life at that point and what life would actually bring for him. So it seems like you are in a similar situation, but the things as opposed to you picking things up when it comes to responsibilities, things start going on a downturn. So it says, you graduate as a mechanical engineer, and then you're not getting paid too well, according to you, whatever too well means, not too well means. And then so you say that you're working for experience. I think that it's good. If you didn't have any other options, it's good to get your experience and get your feet wet so that you can get out there. However, the problem arises, you say, that you started doing a little bit of everything, and recently, last month, you were given a list of cleaning tasks to do around the building, and you feel like it's a waste of your education and it's not helping you move forward. So as I mentioned in the beginning of my insight here, I think there is a fine line. I think that we have to be patient, right? That's the number one thing. When you first start a new job, you start getting experience, hopefully, and the responsibilities and the tasks are not going to come to you. You're not going to be making big decisions. You are not going to be making world-changing. You're not going to have world-changing projects. You're going to be helping out all the other engineers. You're going to be observing other people. Depending on the industry and the level of clearance per se in some industries that you need to have, the paperwork is going to take a little longer. And so you may be, I've worked actually myself, I've been in jobs where I literally was sitting just reading papers for about 6 to 8 weeks because the process just took that long to be processed. However, once those 2 months or month and a half were over, then at that point, I started picking up tasks, I started getting more responsibilities, and the work started being more engaging. So there's a period that I think it's important to just be patient and see where things go. And also what I would do in this situation is, I would do what you're asked, right? It's good to be, I think, just be humble and start doing what you're asked. Just start analyzing and start digging a little deeper where things are going. Start frequenting or asking your boss or your engineering coworkers, hey, are there any projects that we're working on? What else is happening? Perhaps a contract got delayed, or maybe they don't know that you don't have much going on. But if they give you already a cleaning task to do, then they know that you don't have much going on, and so they're just giving you something to do. So the first thing I would start asking is I would approach my engineering coworkers and ask, hey, do you also not have anything to do? I mean, I wouldn't ask it that way, but what I would do is, hey, what kind of projects are you working on? Is there something that you need me to help with? I'm here to help. Show that the willingness that you're there to help, and then see how you can provide some usefulness to the other engineers that are working on other projects. If they don't give you anything, if they say, hey, I'm not working on anything, or there's no projects going on, perhaps the contract got delayed, then I will wait it out. Maybe I will give it a couple of weeks, a month, maybe 2 months, but then I would definitely talk to my boss. Talk to your boss, talk to your project manager, or whomever your supervisor is, and let him or her know that you need some work. This is something that I learned a couple of years ago when I was going through a similar situation. The work was slow, and as opposed to me approaching my project manager and letting him know that I was available to pick up more work, I actually just left and I burned the bridge. So I learned a lesson there to approach your project manager first and let him know or let her know your availability and how much more you can help. Now, here's the thing. Because I truly believe that the start of your engineering career is very important when it comes to you learning your technical craft, learning your expertise, or learning from other engineers. If you are in an environment where you're not learning anything, you think that you're gaining experience, but you're just getting a paycheck, you're not doing much, you are not really forcing yourself to learn, there's nothing new for you to learn, and everybody else is in the same boat, nothing is happening, I would definitely consider switching. If you already talked to your coworkers, if you already talked to your boss, if you already did what you can do, you've already done everything that you've been asked to do, and it's still there's no change, there's nothing going on, there's no way for you to transfer to another department, there's no way for you to provide any sort of useful services, and also for you to learn, then personally, I would try finding another job that actually teaches you more, because it's important in the beginning to start getting exposure to as much knowledge, to as many engineering principles and as many engineering applications and projects and tasks as possible, because you need to start learning and applying all the concepts that you learned in school. So watch what other people are doing, talk to your coworkers, talk to your boss, wait it out for a month or two, and after 3 months, if there's nothing going on and you know there's nothing coming up on the pipeline, I would start looking into other jobs out there that you can apply to and leverage whatever experience it is that you learn there. You can start in your new job with whatever you learn on this current job. If you are not sure about what kind of skills you can leverage, I did make a video a little while ago on how you can highlight and identify transferable skills and go from one industry or from one job to another that is different. So I'll definitely look into that, and I hope that helps, my friend. The next thing that I have here, another question, is I'm currently a graduated engineer and I can't seem to be fully locked in. When I was in college, I wanted to graduate so bad and start my work. But now that I've been there for a couple of years, I feel bored. I feel bored during my free time, and I feel like I'm missing something, but I don't know what it is. What should I do? Why would this be? That sounds like a familiar situation, something that someone went through a couple of years ago. And to be honest, it's something that I've been noticing more and more engineers, young engineers, entry-level engineers, after a couple of years, after you get used to or you adapt to your job and your salary and the work that you do, there seems to be, I've already been observing some engineers that go through this path of they adapt to their new lifestyle of working, their 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever. And then after that, they're looking for something else. They're looking for another for another mountain, for another valley to conquer. What is the next challenge? I think that's really what it comes down to. And this is something that I personally went through a couple of years ago. If you are not familiar with my story and my self-proclaimed quarter-life crisis, I went through something very, very similar. I had a great job. I had a great schedule. I was providing for myself. I was providing for my family. I was giving back, and it was great. It's all great, right? However, one of the things that we unconsciously crave when we go through our lives, at least as far as I've experienced and I know and I've read from other very wise people, is that we are meant for challenges. We are meant for journeys. And if we are not constantly working towards something, then we can feel that emptiness within us. And I think that's perhaps one of the things that you may be experiencing, my friend. When you say you can't seem to be fully locked in, I wanted to graduate so bad and start my work, but now that I've been there for a couple of years, I feel bored during my free time and feel like I'm missing something. So why are you not fully locked into the work that you do? Is it because the work is not engaging? So those are some of the things that we start paying attention to. Is the work that you're doing engaging? And by engaging, I mean, does it require you to think? Does it require you to solve problems? Does it require you to interact with other individuals, with other engineers in teams? Or are you just not interested in what you're doing and you're just doing it for a paycheck? Perhaps that could be another reason why you don't feel fully locked in. And say you wanted to graduate so bad and start your work, but now that you've been there for a couple of years, you feel bored. And during your free time, you feel like this goes back to the journey that I was talking about. When you were graduating, you were about to reach the peak, the mecca of college, which was graduation. That was the peak of one mountain, and then you went through another valley. Now you're going through the valley of the life after college, right? Now you're looking for something else, I think, that is going to be more fulfilling. So here's what I would do. If you feel bored in your free time and you don't know and you think that you're missing something, here's what I would do if I were you. And this is something that I personally did when I went through this, and that is start side hustles. Start exploring your interests. Start exploring your passion. What do you like to do? Do you want to work on other engineering projects? What else interests you? Are you into musical instruments? Are you trying to learn the guitar per se? Do you have any other hobbies that pique your interest and that you want to spend some time doing? Are you into sports? So I would definitely devote a little bit more time towards the hobbies perhaps that you had before college or in high school or when you were younger. Start exploring and start poking. Start poking and start thinking, hey, I like this. Because the reason I'm saying that is like when you find that one thing that interests you, and that you don't mind paying attention or spend hours learning and thinking and doing, whether it is working out or whether it is teaching, whether it is, I don't know, learning a craft or a certain musical instrument, that's going to be a nice complement to your engineering career. That's actually what I did when I started this YouTube channel until now. This YouTube channel is a great complement to my engineering career, because in my engineering career, I don't get to interact. I don't get to teach young people. I work with other engineers who actually are much older than I am with a lot more experience, but I'm not in a place where I am training or I am giving help to people that are coming behind and providing guidance. So as me, with my journey and what I went through, I think that that's something that you may be lacking, a creative outlet where you can explore and dig deeper into yourself and start getting to know yourself a little more. Perhaps, who knows, finding your passion and exploring what else you can do in life as you're moving forward with your engineering career. Who knows? That one thing that you find on the side actually ends up replacing your engineering journey. You never know what's going to happen, but you will definitely never know if you don't try, if you don't start exposing yourself to different experiences. So that's what I would do, my friend, for sure. If you're not fully locked in, find yourself two things. find a way to be a little bit more engaged in the work that you're doing. Find yourself a way to be a little bit more helpful. How can you provide more help to your engineering team at work so that you can be fully locked in? And if that doesn't work, or even at the same time, I would definitely start exploring other things on the side so that you can fulfill that part of yourself that says that you're missing something. So that's what I would do. And let me know in the comments below. Come back to this video in the future and let me know how it all works out. Okay, so thank you all for watching this podcast and listening from whatever you're listening. Let me know in the comments below where you're listening from, where you are from, and let me know if you have any other questions. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you all. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. Peace.